Well, hello everyone. Don Garman here again from Mirador Capital Partners. This time, a little different. We've got two guests. We've got Jackson Vickers, who we've seen before, and somebody who's not new in any by any definition of the term. But we wanted to hear a little bit and introduce Dan Murray to those of you who haven't met him. New face to some of you, but not too many of you. So Dan and I have been really good pals for the better part of 30 plus years now. In fact, I met my wife, Mindy, at Dan's house back in 93, those many, many years ago. And Dan has been with us, started the firm with us, and we've worked together now for 15 years. And why I wanted Dan to come on today is the last few weeks we've been in I think we're celebrating 4 weeks of the Iran war. And in that time, Dan has been responsible for putting together a couple of very detailed, nice presentations about some of the second order effects of the conflict that we might want to consider that might inform strategies. So I thought this morning the three of us would just kind of bat around questions we've gotten from clients, the backdrop, which has been a little crazy. We're going to exit here. Obviously, this video would normally be done next week, but obviously it's Easter this weekend. Today's the end of Q1, which will go down as the worst quarter in 4 years, and in fact, the worst month in 4 years in markets in general. All sort of major indexes have been hit. All the big stocks are down more than 20. We're gratefully not down that much. And so I figured I'd just open it up to you fellas and see what's on your mind. Dan, welcome to our little monthly conversation, and look forward to a pretty organic chat. Not a ton scripted about this. We'll just see where it leads.
Sure thing. Thanks so much, Don. It's been
Yeah,
fun watching you guys inform all the clients on the machinations of the firm, and it's fun to take part in it now.
awesome. Well, we're super happy to have you. Jackson, what's on your mind? I know you've been busy, busy, busy.
Yes, so quite a few different things, but today I wanted to talk about something interesting other than what CNBC talks about for 16 hours a day, which is the new flip into actively managed ETFs. Now that's kind of a twofold conversation. One, the death of mutual funds, so to speak, but also, as we've seen and you've already highlighted, a lot of the large names, Meta, etc., that carry the indices have been down pretty dramatically so far Q1 and this month. That's also led to a 30% increase in inflows to actively managed ETFs. And I already got a client question about this. It's like, oh, do we have active ETFs? Well, we don't have active ETFs because that's exactly what we do. We
Yeah,
have the
exactly.
active management, and we didn't have the index level exposure to all those large names. But you can see how that benefits us. Right, we were in oil and gas companies at larger allocations than anybody else who was owning anything passive, and we were willing to be patient on that. That's broadly paid off, and everybody's just kind of getting in on that trade now,
As
and so
we're
that's
trimming, as
yeah.
we're
As we're
trimming.
trimming, as we're
Yeah.
making slightly different decisions, everybody's deciding to get into that now.
Mhm.
Um, so I just found that so interesting. 30% is a very large number of net new money making its way into active
And
rather
That's
I don't know if you saw this. I know we all track different things, but a lot of us see the same stuff. I did see I think it was the median client account is down 17 and a half year to date, which is obviously, it's almost 3x the exposure we've taken on year to date, because people had gotten so much more heavily indexed to these same seven or eight names that have worked, arguably for the last decade. So yeah, this has been a very different experience.
Yeah, there are a lot of people, especially if you have any exposure to Meta or Microsoft or anything like that, who are down 10, 12% and really actually don't probably feel that bad about it because
Right.
their Microsoft might be down 30, depending on when
Mhm.
they bought it. So I think Mirador clients have to feel pretty good, all things considered.
Yeah, I would certainly agree with that. And obviously, each person will be their own judge, and we'll have those conversations individually. Danny, what's on your mind? What are you looking at?
well. I think a couple things. We kind of mentioned that I was going to talk about Iran and the secondary and tertiary things, or the things we anticipated at first. That
Mhm.
We saw higher energy prices and the tailwinds that would cause the energy producers. We saw that the interest rates go up, the 10 years approaching 4.5, and how those were going to affect interest rate sensitive companies, and also inflationary stuff. It was reported today that gas at the pump in the United States is up 33% since the beginning of the war. It went from $3 to $4, which is a meaningful move on so many different pockets in our industry.
Yeah, huge tax increase on people that aren't really prepared to afford that.
Yeah, from gig workers to people that ship, to people that make plastics and manufacture things like that. What has been surprising is, for example, Kuwait had a natural gas facility attacked kind of unexpectedly, at least I didn't expect them to be in the middle of the war. It makes a meaningful amount of the natural gas for that region in Europe, and it is going to be offline, they say, for 5 years. Another unanticipated a thing that we really need to keep our eye on, that we've been looking at, are noble gases. They're a byproduct of mining for or drilling for oil and extracting these energy products, and it's most notably helium and neon, and they're both critical in the manufacturing process of silicon chips, which are everything from calculators to data centers. The ripple effects of this war really need to be on top of mind, making sure that we're kind of ahead of the curve on how the negotiations are going with Iran, because a protracted war is not going to be good for anybody. And seeing this thing wrap up is critical. But lastly, what you guys were talking about earlier is the investors with dry powder and patience are certainly going to be the biggest beneficiaries of this entire episode. You saw Bill Ackman come out and talk about Freddie and Fannie earlier this week, and how those were just completely mispriced. I think that is going to be a theme in the next month or two. And as at the investment committee at CES, pouring over these mispriced stocks, because it's just the effect of people panicking, to be quite honest, or forced sales.
Yeah, I agree with both of those points. I think that's well said. From a positioning standpoint, I think we can all agree, I know we talk about it a lot, the balls of our feet approach. We do have an out, and I think today's an interesting point, and I'll end this whenever we do end in a few minutes, pulling up the screen of today. And again, it's the last day of the quarter, and there's a lot of probably artificial things happening underneath the surface, but it does underscore why we own the assets and choose to think of ourselves as owners of assets throughout cycles, because a lot of these businesses, to our eye, aren't really going to be affected in a real near-term way. Aggregate earnings for the S&P 500, believe it or not, haven't really budged. And I think longer term, if there's less people doing the work in the short term, and that translates into higher earnings in the short term, will there be a productivity acceleration around the corner that will, create new jobs and new opportunities for those folks who are adapting as we speak? And again, you and I and Jackson too, they're in his generation, they're our kids' generation, but we see that our kids are, I think, attacking new skills and learning the world that they're coming into, which I think will put them in, obviously the people that graduated in the last couple of years are having their moment to figure it out and to kind of catch up. But most of the kids, in college are pretty native to all these tools and how to use them to drive productivity. It's not going to sound like a novel concept. Dan, would you agree with that? You've got boys, my boys' age.
I would totally agree with that.
Yeah.
I think looking forward, it's what I really like is our approach, that we truly look to where the puck is going and not where the puck is. And the markets are priced that way. The markets are priced where we believe that these companies are going to be worth in 12 and 18 and 24 months, and trying to position ourselves, um, and have that foresight is really our huge advantage. And to Jackson's point, the ability to become active, to make those changes midstream and not be locked in to some mandate of a manager is truly our superpower.
Yes, the unconstrained element. Jackson, what are your pals saying? Are you guys, I mean, what is the tone in your peer group?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a lot about affordability, I think. That's been a common theme really for a while, even before we saw this massive increase in gas price. Um, I think it's a little bit of belt tightening personally,
Interesting.
which is I mean not just me, but my peer group. I think some of the unnecessary purchases, especially if you didn't plan them pre-war, are going to get postponed a little bit. And I think that's less about the cash flows themselves and more about just the perspective of we might be getting our generation's opportunity to buy assets. I think that's an important thing to consider, at least maybe not real estate assets, but investment assets.
Yeah.
And not to make any predictions or calls at all, but if we took this perspective last April, things would have played out pretty well. And so I think if you are patient and you are willing to be opportunistic, there are going to be opportunities for you.
Yeah, I think, and Dan, I'm happy to hear any concluding thoughts you have, but I think one thing is objectively true, which is the market has sort of re-rated from 23 or so times to about 19. That's just a much better, more sound place to be entering any of these assets, over the next period of time. Because if the earnings are going to grow, and we wouldn't own these companies if we didn't believe on some level they were going to earn more in the future than they do in the present, then it does set up an opportunity. It's almost like, in the middle of those, the rainstorm storm that we're getting today, there's going to be some beautiful spring flowers on the other end of this at some point in the future. And similar to the tariff, tantrum last year, it's certain, and we did get a lot of concerned, people reaching out in a variety of ways last year and making bold predictions about how we might never ... all these things in the future that ended up, within a few short months becoming pretty they proved to be inaccurate in a relatively short period of time. My point is, it doesn't pay to make bold, sweeping, forever predictions at nearly at any point, but certainly not now in the midst of this kind of binary. I think we created an off ramp to the war today without the straight beam even open. So I know there's the puck is moving in real time. So I'll leave my opinions about how sound that approach is to myself. But either of you guys have anything to say? And then I'm going to throw up a screenshot of today to at least at 10:23 in the morning, leave us on a high note and a positive note here.
Yeah, I'd say that the last thing was you touched on it, that with the tariff tantrum last year, we kind of went through this, a year ago, and the speed and veracity of that market move was, unsettling at best. This is measured and a little more sane in a world of insanity, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah.
I think we can all kind of get our heads around this, and what we lost last year. You look back in July and August, you said, golly, there were so many different opportunities out there that we just didn't have time to analyze because it was down, in 1 week, and then it was back up to those levels the next. But this time we've got a lot more time to process, the secondary and tertiary, effects of the war, and higher energy prices and all of those things. So I really look forward to implementing those ideas over the next week or two or month,
Awesome.
or however long it takes.
Awesome. Well, thank you for all your extra work and for all your contributions. And it's great to have you join us here, which I will ask you to do from time to time. So you don't have to get ready if you stay ready. So, so that's
Amen.
awesome. And we'll go into investment committee here in a little while, and I've got some things that I would love to share with everybody else. Jackson, do you have any parting thoughts?
No, I got everything I would like to say and share, and let's see what you
Okay.
got to share here.
Well, I would say, knock wood that the day's not over yet, but at least so far in the day, we've got green shoots all around. Now, granted, it's the last day of the quarter, so I think it's interesting on the hint that, that we may have somewhat of an off ramp. You see the three positions that are up the most this year, all selling off the last day of the quarter. Oil's down a couple percent. I think we have some visual evidence that if we can somehow extract ourselves and declare victory or whatever that looks like, then maybe cooler heads will prevail yet again, and we will be able to, get back to worrying about AI job displacement and all the things we've been worried about the last 6 months or longer.
Yeah.
So on that note, gentlemen, I appreciate you both. Thank you to those of you who watch this. We appreciate everything. And it's, as I always say, it's never lost on us who we do this for. And good or bad, you let us know what's on your mind. And if you have questions that you ever want us to address, just shoot one of us or anybody else at the firm a text, and we will get to all the pressing questions, or reach out directly and we'll get you that way too. So until next month, happy Easter. End of Q1, good riddance. End of March, good riddance. And on to April we go, and we will do the best we can from here on out. So cheers, gentlemen. Thanks.
Cheers.
Okay, bye-bye.